Hello friends and welcome to a lecture on diffusion, osmosis and absorption. In this lecture we are going to discuss the mechanism of diffusion, osmosis and absorption, factors that influence their rate. We are also going to highlight the importance of these mechanisms. As we know, like all other living organisms, plants also need water for life. In fact, water is most important constituent of plants and is essential for the maintenance of life, growth and development. Plants lose huge amount of water through transpiration and they have to replenish this lost water to prevent wilting. Water is mainly absorbed by roots of the plants from the soil, then it moves upwards to different parts and is lost from the aerial parts, especially through the leaves. Before considering the absorption and movement of water in plants, it is worthwhile to understand the phenomenon of diffusion and absorption involved in water uptake and its movement in the plants. Let us start with diffusion. The movement of the molecules of gases, liquids and solutes from the region of high concentration to the regions of lower concentration is known as diffusion. Here you can see solute transport is from the left to the right and movement of solutes is due to the concentration gradient. Concentration gradient. The difference between the regions of high concentration and low concentration is called the concentration gradient. The steeper the concentration gradient, the faster diffusion takes place. Diffusion occurs because the molecules in gases and liquids are in continuous motion, colliding with one another and exchanging kinetic energy. Diffusion is the process by which molecules intermingle as a result of their random thermal agitation. Such agitation gives rise to random but progressive movement of substance from region of high free energy to region of low free energy. As long as other forces are not acting on the molecules, diffusion causes molecules to move from region of high concentration to region of low concentration, that is down a concentration gradient. Diffusion may occur between gases and gases, for example, diffusion of ammonia into air, liquid and liquid, for example, diffusion of alcohol into water, or solid and liquid, for example, diffusion of sugar into water. Let us take the example of diffusion of sugar cube into a beaker of water. When a lump of sugar is dropped into a beaker of water, it starts dissolving. To begin with, greater concentration of sugar particles is seen around the crystal and minimum in distant areas. The sugar particles move from areas of higher concentration to areas of lower concentration. The process continues till solution becomes homogeneous. The diffusion of one matter is independent of other. That is why many gases and solutes diffuse simultaneously and independently at different rates in different directions at the same place and time without interfering with each other. Now friends, let's talk about the factors affecting the rate of diffusion. The various factors which affect the rate of diffusion include temperature. The rate of diffusion increases with the temperature because it increases the kinetic energy of molecules. The second one is pressure. The rate of diffusion is directly proportional to the pressure. So, the rate of diffusion increases with increase in pressure. The third one is distance. Diffusion is rapid over short distances but extremely slow over long distances. The fourth one is density. According to Graham's law of diffusion, the rate of diffusion is inversely proportional to the square root of density of diffusing substance, or we can say larger the molecules, slower will be the rate of diffusion. Now, importance of diffusion. The diffusion helps in gaseous exchange during the process of photosynthesis and respiration. The process of diffusion is also involved in the transpiration of water vapors. The ions are absorbed by simple diffusion during passive salt uptake. Diffusion is an effective means of transport over very short distances and helps in translocation of food materials. Now, when we dissolve a substance in water, the molecules in liquid are constantly moving. When water molecules bump into particles of soluble substance, they stick to them. When the water molecules move away, they carry particles of solute with them. Adding a solute to water reduces the amount of free water molecules. Now friends, let's talk about partially permeable membrane. The other names used for such membranes are semi-permeable or differentially permeable membrane. A partially permeable membrane will allow certain molecules to pass through it, but not others. Generally, small particles can pass through, but large particles cannot. Now, osmosis. Osmosis is a special type of diffusion of free water molecules from a region of high concentration of free water molecules to a region of low concentration of free water molecules across a semi-permeable membrane until equilibrium of water on both sides of membrane is reached. The various types of osmosis are osmosis, that is the osmotic inflow of water into a cell when it is placed in a solution whose solute concentration is less than the cell sap. Second one is exosmosis, the osmotic outflow of water from a cell when it is placed in a solution whose solute concentration is more than the cell sap. Now friends, let's talk about osmotic concentrations or types of solutions. The first one is isotonic. The solution has the same concentration of water and solutes as inside a cell. The second one is hypotonic. The solution outside has lower solute concentration than inside the cell. And the third one is hypertonic. Here the solute outside has higher solute concentration than inside the cell. This is the image showing the changes in plant cell when placed in isotonic, hypotonic and hypertonic solution. When the cell is placed in isotonic solution, no net movement of water takes place. And when in hypotonic, water moves in, creating outward pressure, cell swells and may eventually burst. And when the cell is placed in hypertonic solution, water moves out and cell shrinks. Now let's talk about osmotic pressure. When a pure solvent is separated from a solution by a semi-permeable membrane, the solvent tends to enter the solution by osmosis. The hydrostatic pressure developed in a solution when it is separated from pure solvent by a semi-permeable membrane in a rigid vessel is called osmotic pressure. It is indicated by Greek letter pi. In other words, the osmotic pressure is the pressure which need to be applied to a solution to prevent the inward flow of water across a semi-permeable membrane. Now, demonstration of osmotic pressure. In the image, the air represents the initial state. The tube contains an aqueous solution, the beaker contains pure water, and the semi-permeable membrane allows the passage of water but not solute. Water flows from beaker into the tube to equalize its concentration across the membrane. B represents the final state. Water has moved into the solution of the non-permeant compound, diluting it and raising the column of water within the tube. At equilibrium, the force of gravity operating on the solution in the tube exactly balances the tendency of water to move into the tube where its concentration is lower. C represents the osmotic pressure. Osmotic pressure is measured at the force that must be applied to return the solution into tube to the level of that in the beaker. This force is proportional to the height h of the column in figure B. Now, the various factors affecting the osmotic pressure. The various factors are concentration of solution. The osmotic pressure is directly proportional to the concentration of solution. When the concentration of solute increases, the osmotic pressure of the solution also increases. The second one is temperature. The osmotic pressure is directly proportional to the temperature. Third one is ionization. The osmotic pressure of a solution depends upon the ratio of solute to solvent particles present in the solution, that is, the number of ions in case of electrolytes and molecules in case of non-electrolytes. Therefore, it may be said that the ionizable molecules possess a higher osmotic pressure. The fourth one is water of hydration. Hydrated molecules are always associated with some molecules of water called water of hydration. When such molecules are dissolved in water, the water molecules associated with the solute molecules never constitute a part of solvent. Therefore, hydrated molecules possess a higher osmotic pressure. Now, let us talk about the importance of osmosis in plants. The phenomenon of osmosis is important in the absorption of water by plants. It is also important in cell-to-cell movement of water throughout the plant body. The rigidity of plant organs, that is shape and form of organisms, is maintained through osmosis. Leaves become rigid and expand due to their osmotic pressure. Growing point of fruits remain rigid because of osmosis and are thus able to penetrate the soil particles. The resistance of plant to drought and frost is brought about by osmotic pressure of their cells. It also helps in opening and closing of stomata. Now, let's talk about Turgor pressure. When a cell is placed in pure solvent, for example water, it shows end osmosis because of higher osmotic pressure of the cell sap. As a result, the vacuole increases in its size and presses the protoplasm. The pressure with which the cell sap presses the protoplasm against the cell wall is called Turgor pressure. The cell wall, on the other hand, being almost rigid, exerts a counter pressure known as wall pressure. This is the image showing the relationship of osmotic pressure, Turgor pressure and wall pressure. The actual pressure exerted by the protoplasm of turgid cell against cell wall is the Turgor pressure. Now, let us talk about diffusion pressure deficit. Each liquid has a specific diffusion pressure. Pure water or pure solvent has the maximum diffusion pressure. If some solute dissolved into it, the water or solvent in the resulting solution comes to attain less diffusion pressure than that of pure water or pure solvent. The amount by which the diffusion pressure of water or solvent in a solution is lower than that of pure water or solvent is known as diffusion pressure deficit. Now let us talk about water potential. The difference between the free energy of water molecules in pure water and the energy of water molecules in any other system, for example water in solution or in a plant cell or tissue, is termed the water potential. It is indicated by Greek letter psi and sometimes referred to as psi w. Water potential of pure water is 0, whereas water potential of solution is minus. In other words, we can say the higher the concentration, the lower or minus is the water potential. Now friends, let's talk about soil water. Broadly, we can recognize 5 stages of water in the soil which differ in their availability to plants. The first one is gravitational water, second capillary water, third hygroscopic water, fourth one is runaway water, and fifth one is chemically combined water. Of these, only capillary water is the water which can be utilized by the plants. Now, water absorbing organs. Water from the soil enter the plant through the epidermis of root and ultimately flow to the shoot system. This is the image of root hairs. Much of the absorption of water occurs near root tips, where the epidermis is permeable to water and where root hairs are located. They are extensions of epidermal cells. They have sticky walls by which they adhere tightly to soil particles. Root hairs account for much of the surface area of roots. The various areas of root involved in absorption and translocation of water are: this area is usually characterized by the presence of root hairs which serve to increase the area of contact between the root surface and soil. Now, dear friends, let's talk about pathways of water. Water in the root move by 3 pathways. They can be classified as apoplast pathway, second one symplast pathway, and third one is transmembrane pathway. Apoplast pathway. In this pathway, the movement of water occurs exclusively through cell wall without the involvement of any membrane. Majority of the amount of water goes through the apoplast pathway. The cortex of the root does not possess such movement of water. The second one is symplast pathway. Here, the movement of water molecules is from cell to cell through the plasmodesmata. The plasmodesmata form a network of cytoplasm of all cells. Transmembrane pathway. The Casparian strip separates the cortex and the endodermis. It is composed of a wax-like substance called suberin, which blocks water molecules through cell wall of the endodermis. Now the water is forced to go through the cell membrane of different cells, leading to a transmembrane pathway. Now friends, the various mechanisms of water absorption. Water can be absorbed by 2 methods: passive absorption and active absorption. First, passive absorption. Any physiological process that does not utilize metabolic energy is called passive process. Passive absorption is by osmosis. Passive absorption takes place along the concentration gradient when the concentration of cell sap is higher than that of soil water. The basic criteria for explaining the process of absorption of water in passive mechanism stems from the fact that there always exists a steep water potential gradient between the soil water and the cells, including xylem elements found in the root system. The gradient is always maintained because rapidly transpiring surface in the aerial region develop a powerful transpiration pull which physically sucks the water upwards from the central vascular xylem element. The xylem element in the root always experience a negative pressure which is transmitted across the cortical cells towards the peripheral root hairs, which actually act as the absorptive surfaces. More than 95% of water absorbed by the root system is operated by passive forces like DPD gradient created by transpirational pull. The second one is active absorption. It is the absorption of water by root with the help of metabolic energy generated by the root respiration. As a result, as the root cells actually take part in the process, so it is called active absorption. Only 4% of total water absorption is carried out by this process. Now friends, let us talk about the factors affecting the rate of water absorption. The different factors which influence the rate of water absorption by a plant can be divided into external or environmental and internal factors. External or environmental factors. The first one is amount of soil water. If the amount of water in the soil is between its field capacity and permanent wilting percentage, the rate of water absorption remains more or less uniform, but a decrease in soil water below the permanent wilting percentage causes decrease in absorption of water. If the soil water is increased much beyond the field capacity, as happened during floods, the air pores between soil particles are filled with water and water absorption stops. The second one is concentration of solutes in the soil water. If the concentration of solutes increases in the soil water, its osmotic pressure also increases, which slows down or even inhibits the absorption of water. The third one is soil aeration. Water absorption is done more efficiently in well aerated soils. Fourth one is soil temperature. The optimum temperature for maximum rate of water absorption ranges between 20 and 30 degrees centigrade. Now let us talk about the various internal factors. The first one is efficiency of root system. A plant with deep and elaborate root system can absorb more water than one having a shallow and superficial root system, because deep roots are always in contact with groundwater at different levels. Second one is transpiration. The rate of absorption of water is almost directly proportional to that of transpiration. A higher rate of transpiration increases the rate of absorption. To conclude, let me highlight the main points of today's lecture. In today's lecture, we discussed diffusion, factors affecting diffusion and its importance. Also, we discussed osmosis and its importance in plants. We also highlighted the mechanisms involved in absorption of water and the various factors affecting it. Thank you.